The Cowboys loaded up at wide receiver when they selected CeeDee Lamb with the 17th pick of the draft. Dallas followed that up in day 2 by selecting defensive back Trevon Diggs out of Alabama. So Shannon, give the Cowboys a letter grade for the draft.
Skip, I really like the draft. Skip, I gave him a B+. And let me tell you why I gave him a B+. I think CeeDee Lamb was a luxury pick. I think the thing is, Skip, they were looking to go in a different direction, but CeeDee Lamb, at the time they came up to pick at the 17th slot, he was the highest player remaining, the highest graded player remaining on the board. So instead of taking need, they took best available player, although they really didn't need that position. I thought the next pick, Trevon Diggs, Skip, in the second round, they needed a corner, they got a corner. Now, I understand they took Neville Gallimore, another Oklahoma player, with the third round pick. But I thought, for me, Skip, and this tells me they're going to a 3-4 defense, Skip. I thought they really needed an edge rusher. Now, they might know something we don't. Maybe they believe that Aldon Smith and Gregory will get reinstated. And so maybe that's one of the reasons why they didn't take an edge rusher high, Skip, is that they believe these guys are going to be reinstated and they'll be able to give them something from those spots. But it's hard to argue that they don't get a good grade because they feel the need. They needed a center. For the sudden retirement of Travis Frederick, they went out and got a center. But the thing for me, Skip, is that they didn't get the edge rusher until they took the guy out of Utah in the 5th round. So I felt if they'd got an edge rusher sooner, I would have given them an A. But it's hard for me to give them anything. They deserve a B+, because I thought Will McClay does a great job of scouting. Jerry Jones was on his yacht. Maybe that's why he was a Skip. He probably was out far enough. Nobody could get on a speedboat and get to him soon enough so he wouldn't do anything dumb. But I thought they did a very good job, Skip. I like the CeeDee Lamb pick. I don't love the CeeDee Lamb pick because, like I said, Skip, they made a strength. They took a strength and made it even stronger. But it's hard to argue with what they got and the needs that they were able to fill. I just wish they would have filled the edge rusher a little sooner. But like I said, maybe they believe that Aldon Smith and Gregory will be reinstated and they'll be able to give them something. But I gave them a B+, Skip.
That's big of you. Now it's my turn. How about my Cowboys? My Cowboys won the draft. I'll give you that Baltimore had a very good draft. Dallas had a little better draft. Pro Football Focus gave my Cowboys an A+. I'll be objective and just give them an A because it was sensational. And as Stephen Jones said yesterday, you're going to have to go a long ways to be more all-time than how we hit on pick after pick after pick. Because what happened, Shannon, was, let's start with CeeDee Lamb. He's the steal of the first round. They had him ranked 6th on their board, and he fell in their laps at 17. And CeeDee said on Saturday, I didn't even talk to Dallas. We didn't even communicate except briefly at the combine. So it was the last thing on his radar and the last thing on their radar that he would fall to them. I give Jerry Jones high marks for saying, what? And scrapping whatever plan they had at 17 and saying, we have to take a receiver. We do need a slot receiver. And he played about 50% of his Oklahoma snaps in the slot. But you have to take the ultimate playmaker. I told you, to me, he's the best receiver in the draft. You stole him at 17. And then you proceeded in the next 5 picks to steal every one of those picks because every player they took from then on should have been drafted at least 1 round earlier. Let's start with Trevon Diggs. I'm not the biggest fan of his, but I kept trying to evaluate him as the 17th overall pick because a lot of people were mocking Diggs to the Cowboys in the 1st round at number 17. They got him at 51. My concern was when I watched LSU and Alabama, Jamar Chase, who can really play, he was hurting Trevon Diggs. Diggs is a press corner. He's a big physical corner, and I love it that his big brother can really go get the football because Trevon, when he was a senior, obviously in high school, he was a star receiver. He's a ball hawk. He loves to get his hands on the football and intercept the football. He is the polar opposite of Byron Jones, who they lost in free agency, obviously, to the Dolphins, who dramatically overpaid for a guy who had 2 interceptions in 5 Cowboys seasons. Diggs will intercept the football. Maybe he's bound to be a safety at some point, and that would be just fine with me. And then we go to third round. You brought up Neville Gallimore. I watch every snap Oklahoma plays because I'm born and raised a Sooner fan. Shannon, trust me, what do I always tell you about how I study college players? It's all off television, and I look for them to flash, to pop, to jump off the screen. Neville Gallimore, over the last 5 or 6 games of the year, just took games over. I'd say, where did he come from? He's out of Ottawa, obviously, Ontario in Canada. And he's a little bit of a late bloomer, but he goes 3.04, and he ran 4.79 at the combine. He can flat fly for a big man, and he's a force. He's high motor. He's a game changer because he's just a relentless people mover in the middle of the field. So I thought it was to get him in the third round is because he's at least a second-round pick to me. And then Mel Kiper wrote that Reggie Robinson, their next pick, who also is a corner who might be a safety, big corner, 6'1", 205, was rocketing up draft boards over the past few weeks, and he was one of my most improved players in the country. And they get Reggie Robinson in the 4th round, and I'm like, thank you, God. And then let's go to the 5th rounder. They obviously lost Travis Frederick out of Wisconsin, who was the late first-round pick at 31 and became a perennial Pro Bowler, and he had to retire, obviously, autoimmune condition. And yet they go back to Wisconsin all the way down at the bottom of the 4th round, and they get Tyler Biadasz, who won the Remington Award for the best center in college football. And I'm saying he started for 3 years at the offensive lineman factory that is Wisconsin. And I'm saying, thank you, God, again. How is he still there? I don't know. Will he start next year? Probably not. Could he be a stalwart in the middle of that line for 10 years to come? Sure he could. And you got him almost in the 5th round. Then you talked about edge rusher. And I'm saying, wait a second. They got Bradley Anae out of Utah, and how is he still there in the 5th round? And Mel Kiper said that on Anae, he's one of my favorite day 3 picks. I had him ranked 89th overall, and he went 90 spots lower. What? And if you look at his background, Shannon, Bradley Anae at Utah had 24 sacks over the last 2 years and made all Pac-12 first team both years and was third team All-American last year. High motor, playmaker, nasty, relentless. Another guy where you say, what was he doing on the board at that point? I don't know. And I'm saying, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God. Steal, 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 steal. There were no reaches. There were no head scratchers. There was none of this. Wait a minute, what are you guys doing, which I often have with the Dallas Cowboys, although now I must admit, you look back at the last decade, they have had second most Pro Bowlers to Kansas City over the last 10 years, and I got a feeling CeeDee Lamb's going to be the next one, and maybe a couple of these other guys will make a Pro Bowl along the way. I was stunned, pleasantly shocked by this. I think Dallas won the draft. I think they got way better on, obviously, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I think the Eagles didn't get much better, if any better. And all of a sudden, I'm saying I'm starting to love Dallas next year to win the NFC East.
You know what, Skip? When you look at it, a lot of times, Skip, if you hit on the first rounder, nobody really cares what else you do in the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, or 5th round. So if CeeDee Lamb is the player, because that's the guy, Skip, no matter what transpired, you're always looking at the first rounder. But the guys that are in the later round, those are your team builders. That's how you fill your team in and have success, because the likelihood of every last one of your first round, the Cowboys have been very good at their first-round draft picks. You look at Tyron Smith, you look at Zach Martin, you look at Frederick, who just retired, you got Zeke Elliott, you got Amari Cooper. So, Skip, they've kind of hit on their first rounders. Now, their second-round draft pick, their first-round, the Wolf Hunter, he's really the only first-round draft pick they got on that side of the football. All the rest of the guys, Jalen Smith, they got Jalen Smith. Everybody thought, well, what are you doing taking a chance? They took a chance. He came back. He's great. I think DeMarcus Lawrence was a second-round pick. So, Skip, they've hit.
What?
So now these guys, what you do, Skip, is that your first-rounders, those are your headline guys. But the guys that fill your team in and make your success are the Diggs, the Gallimore, the Robinsons. So, Skip, if these players are what you believe they can be, Dallas is on to something, and they'll be in contention because they got some players now. Name, Skip, they got great name recognition. Now we've seen now guys sometimes you're like, oh man, that guy, he can't miss. He can't miss in the NFL, and all of a sudden it don't turn out. But if they turn out to be what you believe they can be, the Cowboys hit it out the park. I'll give you that. The Cowboys hit it out the park, and the Eagles struck out.
Okay, thank you. And final point about CeeDee Lamb. The more I think about it, obviously Dallas wasn't in the market, you think, for a number one receiver because they just gave $100 million to Amari Cooper. But you know
Correct.
And I know how much I dislike Amari on the road where he disappeared at Jets, at Patriots, at Eagles. And I'm starting to think, hey, CeeDee Lamb might emerge as the number one receiver to the number two Amari, or at least he would push Amari to show up occasionally on the road, Amari. Now he's got somebody to push him because all CeeDee Lamb does is